Hi, thank you for joining me for How to Declutter Your House in a Weekend, which is really fast. First, I'm going to share a story of a recent whole home decluttering project that we did and how that went. Next, I'm going to talk about all my tips, and there's a lot of them, on how to declutter your house in a weekend. And then I'm going to talk about the future, what to do after you've decluttered your house, and also some clutter prevention tips for the future so it doesn't happen again, right? So recently, we love to do whole home organizing. It's such a fun transformation. I was trying to think, we have never decluttered a whole home in a weekend. We've done it in a week. So we did one recently. It was a week. It was literally Monday through Friday. I think someone went every day, and some days there was multiple people there. And doing it in a weekend is a big undertaking. And depending on your home, the size of it, right? What's the square footage? And then what's the volume of stuff inside of it? When we've done whole home decluttering, that was a small home. It was a standalone house. It was a bungalow. So it had 2 first floor bedrooms, and then it had like one larger room upstairs. And the person who owned it had decluttered. They had downsized several times already, and it was a single person living alone. So it was only one person. And I think we spent about 50 hours. So that's what these organizing places do. You count up how many hours it takes, right? And then that's usually how you charge people. So we have had upwards of 50 hours for every other home that we've done. Usually something around 100 hours is sort of average. And then like we had I'm thinking we did one, it was a 5-bedroom home with 5 family members, right? So it was 2 parents and then 3 kids. And the kids were older, teenage, young adult. And that we spent 185 hours, something like that, 186. And we had another one that was seniors downsizing. And we spent right around 160 hours with them as well. And I think they had raised 2 children who were out of the home. I think there's some of it, in that case, it was more that the seniors were moving slowly. And so as much as we try to get things moving faster, I think that slowed us down a little bit. And there was also a lot of focus on the home office and paperwork, and that can be so slow. So what I want you to hear from that is it is a big undertaking to do it in a weekend. I mean, what do you think, 10 hours on Saturday, 10 hours on Sunday, 20 hours? That is a lot less than anything I've just described. So I think you want to be a little bit realistic with what your expectations are. All right, so I'm going to start sharing some of the tips. One big tip is to definitely take before photos. No matter what you do, no matter how far you get, you're going to make a dent, and you want to have those before photos so you can see all the progress that you made and look back and be like, oh man, that's how it was before. I mentioned, just sort of adjusting your expectations. I would target the living areas. If you're trying to declutter your whole house, I would not be looking at those storage areas. Unless you're like, no, we're decluttering the attic in the weekend, but the attic, the basement, the garage, especially if they're trouble areas, you could spend the whole weekend in that single area. And so I would target the actual areas of your home that you live in day to day. The very first thing I would do is start with a trash bag. And I would just set the timer for maybe 30 minutes, maybe it's an hour, I don't know, and walk around with the trash bag and just try to fill it up. And maybe it's a donation box if you depending on your home and lifestyle, but, trying to just get that moving, the idea of clearing things out and getting some quick wins. You want to get some quick wins so you can kind of keep the motivation and inspiration up. As I mentioned, this is a big project, so I would recommend getting help. When we talk about hours, we're adding up how many hours were there per person. So when I say we spent 50 hours working on that house, that it means that there was 50 organizing hours. That might have been me for 20 hours, another organizer for 15 hours, and then a third organizer for 10 hours. And so if you think about, if your goal is to get 8 to 10 hours done on Saturday, 8 to 10 hours done on Sunday, if this is a big project, having a friend in for 2 hours on Saturday and maybe a different friend in for 2 hours on Sunday, now you're at 14 hours, right? Instead of 10. So I would encourage you to get help. Usually friends and family are willing and supportive. You might have to think about the right helpful person, right? You want someone who's going to support what you're doing, be a cheerleader, be positive, not be dragging you down, not be doing things that you don't want them to without your permission and input. So that's definitely, I would get help. I would think about breaking up the areas of your home into the time sections that you have. So in my mind, I would be thinking of like time sections like morning block, afternoon block Saturday, morning block Sunday, afternoon block Sunday. And then I'm not sure, like after dinner, are you going to be ready for a little bit more, or are you going to be exhausted? I would probably be exhausted, but you know yourself best. So I'd kind of think about what are the sections of time that I have and what do I want to work on in that time period. So I was thinking of, sort of generally what are the living areas that probably most people have. And so I would maybe do like kitchen Saturday morning, bedrooms Saturday afternoon. And then maybe it's like living common areas. It might be a playroom or a rec room Sunday morning, and then like closets Sunday afternoon. And there might be several, right? You have that entryway closet, a lot of times coat closet, maybe a linen closet, maybe a bathroom closet. So that could entail quite a bit. So I'm going to tell you right now, it is ambitious as a professional who does this all the time, thousands of organizing hours under my belt. It is ambitious to do these spaces in a block like that of maybe 3 to 4 hours. It is ambitious. You are going to be tired. The next thing I'm going to say is because you have a big goal in mind, you want to be focused on the big moves. You don't want to get swamped down with organizing paper clips, for example. And that it's kind of a joke, right? And I say that to people sometimes when we're talking about this whole home transformation. I'm like, well, if we have 75 hours to transform your home, that doesn't mean I have time to be sorting every paper clip. But we're going to take those 75 hours and go throughout the house and do a lot. So that's why you want to look at what are your priorities and match them up to the time. Because you could easily spend 10, 12 hours in a kitchen. Easily. Like not hard. It depends on the size of the kitchen. It depends on the volume of items that you have, honestly. But so you want to think about the big moves. And the reason I like that planning is because even if the kitchen is getting a little out of hand, if you know like, hey, we got to wrap this kitchen section up before lunchtime because after lunch we're moving on to the bedrooms. It's kind of like, what are the priorities? What can we do pretty quickly and then move on to the bedroom so that you can get to the whole house or all the priority areas. Just like paper clips, I would not get bogged down in paperwork. Unless that's the priority, unless you're like, we're doing this to handle the paperwork. Paperwork is so time consuming and it's so small, right? Sometimes I give the example like, if you're trying to declutter your whole house in a weekend, if you are like an average American family, which is what I'm guessing, you have thousands of items in your home. Thousands. Sometimes I just like to think about that. Thousands. But here's the thing. You have thousands of items. And so if we said, we're going to go into the home office and we're going to tidy up the home office and we're going to touch 200 items, that could make a big dent. But if I touch 200 papers, that could be a single banker's box and you might not even notice. So I wouldn't get lost in paperwork. I'd be like, all we're doing maybe is gathering paperwork so that we can handle it later. So you don't want to get bogged down in these tiny things. I would also say have a plan for exiting items. So if you're primarily going to donate the items that you don't want, like have that plan. Is the place open Sunday afternoon, or do you need to make some runs Saturday at the end of the day? Or some of these places you can schedule a truck to come, a truck pickup Monday morning, or are you having some friends come by? Maybe you're cleaning out kids' clothes and you have a couple friends that you like to give hand-me-downs. Have them scheduled to come by Sunday at 4 to get that stuff out of there. The more it can be completely done at the end of the weekend, you're going to feel better, because we're all going into Monday a little overwhelmed, and we got, the whole week ahead of us, school, work, what have you. So try to have that plan of like how to wrap it up with a bow at the very end. The next thing I wanted to say is being ruthless. So, and this ties into the next one I wanted to talk about, sentimental items. So there's two different messages here. A lot of people have a lot of sentimental items. Sentimental items, hopefully you know what those are, memorabilia, pictures, photo albums. In this closet right here, you can't see it, behind the door are the photo albums from my childhood, all lined up on a shelf. Maybe one day I'll show you. I have those. Your wedding dress, your grandmother's tea set, your grandfather's military uniform, what have you. Sentimental items. When you're doing this rush job, you're trying to be quick, you're trying to make a difference, the only thing I would do with sentimental items is gather. So you're trying to get them into, like, all the sentimental items are in one place. They're in one bin or 5 bins. They're in one corner of the attic. They're in one area. They're all together. And that's something that you're going to want to deal with later, because those items are irreplaceable. And so you don't want to mess up with them. Now there's the rest of the items, right? All the bric-a-brac that we have in our homes that we have bought from the stores that is, pretty disposable, fast fashion. Oh, that's cute. Let me put it in my home. Nothing sentimental. With those items, I want to encourage you to be ruthless. Clear as much as you can. You probably will not miss it. And a lot of that stuff is highly replaceable if you do miss it, right? Like, oh, I got rid of that sweater, which probably the reason you got rid of it is like, you were like, oh, it never quite looks right? And then you got rid of it and they're like, I don't have a black sweater. You can go out and buy a new black sweater, right? So it's not a big deal to be ruthless. There's something called the 20-20 rule, which if you're into decluttering, you've probably heard before. But most of these little just-in-case items can be gotten within 20 minutes of your home for $20 or less. Of course, that's different if you live, someplace out in a very rural area. But just consider, if it's easily replaceable, be ruthless. Okay, so hopefully those tips are helping you have a very successful decluttering your home in a weekend. Again, big undertaking. So I give you a pat on the back and 5 stars for even attempting it. And even if you don't get as far as you wanted, you probably made a big difference from where you started. Now, I just wanted to talk for a minute about the future. So you're on the other side of this weekend project. So think about circling back, right? So you're going to be able to circle back through a little bit, because hopefully maybe you're even in maintenance mode. And when people talk about being in maintenance mode for decluttering and organizing, they're thinking about just decluttering little and often. So, I'm getting out my hair brush and, hair clips, and I'm like, oh, this drawer doesn't feel too good. Okay, I'm going to take 5 minutes right now, if that, right? It might even be 3 minutes, and just dump all this stuff I don't need into the trash and maybe gather up some things that I don't want and give them to my daughter, or put them in a hair clips are a little, But, if it's something that's good for donation, put it in a bag for donation. So thinking about that maintenance mode, you're going to be able to go back and do more. And I think decluttering is like peeling an onion. You're going to think you've gotten rid of everything you could in that area. And then in 6 months, if you circle back through, you're going to find more things. You're going to be like, I thought I was going to use that, but I didn't, So your mentality is going to change. And that's just going to happen naturally and automatically. You don't have to do anything special. I decluttered my whole house, and I think it's been about 10 years since I did like a major overhaul, and I can feel that the house is starting to fill up again. Okay, so just time has gone by. My kids are older. We're collecting more things. We're ready for like a big overhaul again. So that's the other question to think about. Like when we think about prevention, it's like, what's happening? There's going to be a natural, if you don't have as much items going out as coming in, there's going to be a natural buildup. But, if you're not getting to that like really feeling good point, what is happening? Did you declutter enough? Are you or someone else filling the house back up with items? And that's what you have to just sort of be really honest. The other thing that I noticed is you might have decluttered enough and you might be in maintenance mode, but it doesn't feel better. And some of that might have to do with really the habits. So getting into some of these more maintenance habits of like having frequent resets now and then, that's what's going to help you feel better. And so you might have decluttered, but you're like, still feeling kind of crummy. Begin thinking about, what are these resets? Like, when am I doing them? How often? How good are they working? That might be the issue. So we want you to feel really good on the other side of all this hard work that you're doing and the transformation. So I hope these tips help, and thank you for joining me.